Evening everyone. If somebody could just let me know they can hear me, that would be great. Thanks Dougie. A very good evening everyone. We'll just leave it 2 or 3 minutes just before everything will arrive. But feel free to have a chat on the live chat there. Hi Brian, good evening. And hi to everybody else who's joined so far. Hopefully you're going to enjoy the presentation. I've never done this before. It's a bit weird not having an audience. Just so it feels like a proper presentation, just to let you know, the toilet's at the top of the stairs. And, if you hear a fire alarm, just join me out in the car park. Hi Andrew. Feels really weird not having an audience as such in front of me. This is pretty much a winging it presentation, so I'll try and keep the anecdotes flowing as best I can. That's not going to happen, Steve. Just wait another minute or so. Now what I've done with the presentation is I've broken it up into sections, so rather than just concentrating on a DXPedition following a DXPedition, what I'm going to do is I'm going to split it up into things like planning, travel, radios, aerials, and the various views and over the years. Hi Mark, yeah, I thought you might recognise that photograph. The dipole and the mast with the collinear on brings back a lot of memories, Mark. We're going up and down a bit on viewers. I'm probably boring everybody already. Yes, that particular picture doesn't really show the weather we had when we put those aerials up. To say the rain was horizontal isn't going anywhere near. Is it Emmerdale's? Is that what it is, Steve? Thank you for that. As long as it goes up every time it goes down, we'll be alright, Dougie, don't worry. I think you've got problems. I'm sending stuff up to YouTube and receiving it back from YouTube to try and get everything. Anything could happen here. I should also warn you that at any time be prepared for Kai the cat to make an appearance. If his heated mat goes off or whatever. So we'll try and see how we do. Okay, there's about a 6 or 7 second delay for me, maybe a little bit more at times. So if something doesn't go quite right, or if I'm ahead of you, don't worry, you will catch up. Okay. Brian reckons he's lost my audio. Is there anybody else still hearing me? It's pointless starting unless people can actually hear me. Thank you, Paul. And Andy. Nice to see you, Andy. And George. Good evening. Right, planning then. Let's have a look. Planning is essential. Inventorying is absolutely crucial. This picture was taken of me in 2006 when we were planning to go to Mull. It was our very first DXPedition. The Workington Club had done a couple previously to that, and I think it was Sky, Steve, wasn't it? So we fancied having a go, and this was with Sands Contest Group at the time. And so in order to make sure there were 6 of us going, we had no idea what we were doing. So as I was working in a particular area at the time, I was able to put together a document that everybody got a bit of, and I did the inventorying. When you're going somewhere, you really need to understand what you're putting in the vehicles and what you need to bring back. So it's absolutely crucial. When we did Mull, we planned to get to Oban in time to go to Tesco to do the shopping at Tesco's, and that's exactly what we did here. And we've got Andrew here, who's on at the moment, myself. I think that's Mark to the right hand side, and that's definitely Bex, who's loading up the car. We had 3 cars and all 3 were full of gear, and Bex planned the shopping for the week for the 6 of us, and costed it all out and out, which is quite remarkable, really. Well, that was our very first one. It got a bit more complex when we started doing DXPeditions along with the guys from the Workington Club. Not a particularly great picture, but that's Huey on the right hand side there doing a bit of a selfie along with 1 or 2 other people, and I think just one of the 2 gangs that were invading Morrison's at the time. I think we got 4 or 5 trolleys in the end, but we had a long list of requirements because we needed to feed 10 people for a week. I think this was for Jura. So we did all the main shopping, and Mark McSherry, M0WCR, did the meat shopping from where he was going. He was our chef for the week. The next slide just shows, obviously you need essentials like milk and toilet rolls and a little bit of lubricant. The DX juice that you can see to the left of the picture is an absolute requirement and has 0 alcohol in it. In fact, Brendan, who's actually on the presentation and watching, couldn't work it out at all. And when we were at Arran, he actually did try to get drunk on Boddingtons and failed miserably and had to quit in the end in the middle of the night and go to bed. But he did try his best. But it kept the throat lubricated, and a good time was had by all. Just another picture to demonstrate the fact that there were boxes everywhere, and it's amazing. It looks a lot of beer, that, but actually for 10 blokes for a week, it's not very much at all. In fairness, Kevin and I drank most of it. But there's a few more things there. You can see orange juice and one thing and another. I think Mark made the shopping list. M0WCR, you can see there's a lot of cheese in the foreground and one thing and another, crisps. There was a lot of fruit and veg as well. And you can see the van in the background. A van became a real necessity. This was the first van we hired and did as well, and this was for Jura. And Linda always loves this photograph because I look really short. I don't look as if I'm sat down at all. A really small person and slightly camp at that. But there you go. So you start to pack a van, and there is a thing here about packing a van and getting everything in, because one of the things you've got to remember is that we've got to get all the equipment in and all the food, and when we've got all that in, we've here at Workington to put in. So we had to try and I think those 4 brown bottles are cider for Kevin, if I remember rightly. We had all this stuff to put together, ready to take up. So travel, how are we going to get there? Am I going at an okay pace, guys? Are you keeping up? Has everybody got that slide? Just let me know if you're getting buffered or anything like that. It seems to be going okay. Right. I can't remember who took this photograph, but you can see just between me and Kevin there are 2 mass sections there that were coming through the car. This was my company car at the time. We always felt a bit like the Blues Brothers, really, only in a really posh car. And if I'm not mistaken, and I could be, I think we'd just finished some donuts. I think you've got it to do. You know, it's a hard life, but there you go. And the one thing about going on DXPedition is you're going to get a lot of water. Regardless of where you go, you're going to see water. I'm not really sure where we're going on this picture. I'm not sure which particular expedition it was. But when we went to Arranmore, which is off County Donegal, where we've been twice actually, there were 2 ferries. There was the main ferry across to Belfast, and then we drove across Northern Ireland out into Donegal, and then we had the ferry from Burtonport across to Arranmore, which was only 15 minutes. That's quite a cute ferry, that, actually. And there are 2. There's a red ferry and a blue ferry, and I'm not sure which one won the race, but they're run by 2 separate companies, which is remarkable, really, when you consider the few people who live there. Some people are really good on the water. Some people aren't, and you can see Kevin. They're not looking very well at all. Kevin does not travel well on water. Kevin is G6FKE, and good evening, Kevin, if you are watching, but it's a later time. I'm absolutely fine on water, so it's no problem. And again, I'm not sure what that one is. I suspect that's coming back from Jura, because I kept him outside and kept him from looking through the cabin, because the water was running fairly high. So I just tried to keep him occupied. But it could have been our first one to Mull, actually. Thinking of it, it could have been the first one. And when we were going to Mull, this is Bex 2E0BEX. Well, you'll remember this one, Mark, won't you? These were on the boat, driving in Scotland, drive on the left, and they were determined to stick one of these on my steering wheel, which I wasn't having in the poshest car I'd ever not owned, because it was a company car. And the amusing thing about this sign is when you get to Mull, there's a section of about a mile where you can actually drive both ways. The rest of it is pretty much single track road with passing places, so it was quite amusing, really. And when you have gone, there's a picture for Steve and Paul there, although Frank and Andrew are in the background. When you have got onto the ferry and going, and quite often later on, what we did was we drove through the night to meet the ferry, because we had to get there in the morning. The earlier we got there in the morning, the better for getting aerials up first day, etc. And yeah, you got a bit mad by the time you got there, because some of the drives were quite long. And speaking of that, this picture is in Pitlochry. I've always found Pitlochry to be a bit like sort of Ambleside without any of the class, really. I'm sorry if anybody feels any different, but it's a very strange little place, is Pitlochry. But this was on the way to Tanner and Moor, and more of that later. But Tanner and Moor is in the Summer Isles. It's very high up around the level. And Pitlochry was halfway, so that gives you an idea. So we got to Pitlochry and we ate, and when we got to I can't remember the name of the town. Anybody can remind me? A village, whatever you want to call it. Before we went over to Terramore, it's about 45 minutes north of Ullapool. The island has no roads at all, so we had to carry all the stuff. Now, you can see the cars in the background there, and that's where the cars stayed all week. And all this gear here, and here, and here, I'll just go back one there. All this stuff, including my banjo there, and Andy's fiddle, we had to take out of the car and load into a fishing boat. Now, when I say a fishing boat, it's one of these boats that goes out with rods for people who want to see fish. And if you look at this picture here, you can see it's all loaded up. We were outside. Thank goodness the weather was okay. And you can see the fishing rods there in their slots for when it's hired out for doing that. I'm trying to remember how many of us there were. There were either 5 or 6 of us, I think, who went to Tenramore. And Tenramore was different in lots of ways. One of the major things was we went in the summer. We didn't go at the end of September, early October. So we did have some midge issues, but not too bad bees. Nobody lives on the island, so we literally had to carry everything. Until we got to the island. Now, normally on the island they have a quad which helps take stuff up, but the quad was broken down, of course. So we're going to be taking all this stuff up the hill, and we'll see the house later. And it's a fun going to be taking all this stuff up the hill, and we'll see the house later. And it's a fun little island. But yeah, Steve will remember well, I think. Who actually decided he would carry 2 flight cases to balance himself out with a KPA 500 amplifier in each. And to this day, his arms are still a foot longer than they were. but there you go. I've seen you say, I think 7, right? Okay, Steve. Oh, lordy, sorry about that. Let's get it back up. So there's a little video in a minute just showing you that, but you can see we were loading up this. It was sort of a motorized wheelbarrow, if you like, and there aren't slow speeds, trust me. There aren't nice easy roads. There are tracks. And so the next little video shows a little bit of that. This is Holly doing all the hard work while we men just carry on walking, carrying light stuff. I hope you were able to hear that and it went okay. Okay, we're buffering a little bit, so I'll just wait for everybody to catch up. And I'll just put the next picture up, which will send shudders down some people's spine. So tell me when we get there. What the video didn't show was the little wheelbarrow, motorised wheelbarrow, tipped over halfway up, and we had to straighten it all up again. It certainly wasn't smooth. It certainly wasn't. Can everybody tell me when they can see the helicopter, please? In case I have to restart the stream. I think it's there. I'm seeing it on my stream. Yeah, okay, Andy. This is the type of transport you don't want to see when you're on holiday. I'm not going to go into detail on this. But suffice to say, that really isn't zoomed very much. That is pretty much our view of the helicopter. And hi Peter, hadn't seen you there, mate. And that is pretty much our view of it. And one of our members, DXPedition members, ended up having a memorable ride on that. But we won't go any further into that on this. So the next thing is aerials. Now aerials obviously are extremely important. And this is Mull. We were at the Score Estate near Bunessen in Mull, and that's Chris M0 DWK, Mark M0 DGK, and myself, one of my best views, putting up one of the aluminium spider masts, probably for the spider beam, which you will see in a little while. And so we were discussing how we were going to, where we were going to go out and one thing and another. Bear in mind, we'd never done this before. So it's all good fun. But we got everything up. And the next shot is a sunset shot, actually. It's unashamedly a picture shot. And these are the aerials after we put them up at. So you can see how close we are to the sea there. You've got the spider beam there, which for people who don't know is a tri-band beam, a wire beam. It's about 30 foot across, and it's basically 3 nested monobanders for 10, 15 and 20. You'll see a vertical line down the back of it, and that is the tether, and that's how we used to rotate the beam around the mast, and then we'd just tether the back of it to the ground to keep it in place. The aerial to the lower right looked further away and just the same size, but it isn't. It's actually closer, and it was a homemade 6-meter spider beam, and it actually worked really well. We did some tests front to back and things, listening on an 817, and it worked really well. But sadly, 6 didn't open. But there you go. Mull was an amazing place. First time I saw a gun, and you could totally see the Milky Way. It's the last time I've seen the Milky Way. The next shot is from Jura. Just give me a second. Quick glug of tea. The next shot is Jura, and this is Andrew, and he's up a tree. And I'm not going to go into all the stuff that went into that, but suffice to say, he was a fair way up that tree at times, and we were going to put one end of an aerial up there, so you've got to do that. Now Jura was an amazing place. Basically there's a small chapel, there's a pub, there's a distillery, a stores, a school, and about 250 people, and about 2,500 deer. So absolutely astonishing place, and this was our first real big DXPedition. And this is the place we had. This is Jura House, and we had the first and second floors, and it was an unbelievable place. It was the first time we'd gone to somewhere where we had more room than we had aerials, for shame. But we also experimented with all kinds of things. You can see the spider beam on the left there. In the front and centre is a dipole for the lower bands. Behind it you can see, well, you can't properly see it. It just looks like a rotatable dipole, but for 2, 4 and 6. And there are other aerials as well up there. And again, you can see how close we were to the sea. You can see the Moxon much better there on the left-hand side. And we did really well here. We had other aerials as well. We put up a vertical for a pair of phased verticals here for, I think, 20 meters. These now, I think, yeah, looking at them, it was the Workington guys who brought these, and it may have been the first time we used phased verticals. The image in the background that looks like the Enterprise It isn't. It's a lighthouse, and that's the road going up to it. But it just looks like the Starship Enterprise there. So this was a phased array for 20 meters. Very straightforward to build. When you built it in its very basic form, you had two 20-meter verticals, quarter wave 20-meter verticals, with four radials, with the feed point about a meter off the ground. And in between the two, you had three quarter wave lengths. These were actual electrical quarter waves, not physical quarter waves, of coax. And they all joined together, and where the centre one joined the two outer ones, you had T-pieces, and you fed it either one side or the other, depending on which way you wanted it to fire. Straightforward and extremely powerful. We've got a really good front to back ratio. So it's all good fun. I don't think we can rent that place again, because it changed hands, but it was fantastic. The place cost about £1,500 for the week, which sounds an awful lot of money, but when there's 10 of you, it really keeps you down. I don't think we've ever done a DXPedition that cost us more than about £350 each for the included transport, food, the place, everything, so it's quite amazing, really. Aerials that we had there, which we've never really used again, was a two-element delta loop. Thank you. A two-element delta loop for 15 meters. So you can see that quite clearly there. Again, homemade by Paul and Steve, or Paul. I'm not sure who exactly did that, but again, that was rotatable using the Armstrong method. Well, while we were at Jura, we were, as you can see in the field there, we had the spider beam up, we had 20 meters on, and we had 400 watts running into the spider beam, and we worked a couple of JAs, and we were doing quite well. In the meantime, Steve and Paul from the Workington had gone down to the edge of the water. Now, forget the aerials on the roof. One's obviously VHF, UHF, the other one is an HF aerial, probably for 20 meters. But to the left there, and there's another picture in a second, you can see a vertical Moxon for 20 meters. Now, that's a better picture of it, so you get a better idea of what the thing was like. And high tide, that was almost in the water. And Steve and Paul were down there, and I think I'm right in saying that it was an ICOM IC7000, and they were running 100 watts using a generator to power everything, which was well away in a little boathouse there. And they were running 100 watts, and they were working into Eastern Asia for fun. I can't remember how many JAs there were, but it was 20 odd, and I can clearly remember the fact that they worked well over 20 JAs, and they couldn't stop working Eastern Asia, and they had to restart the radio a couple of times because the receiver was getting so swamped. They literally had to restart the radio. It was quite amazing, which just shows you they were running 100 watts and a simple vertical Moxon, and that mast is fiberglass, down near the water, and they were getting much better results than we were with 400 watts and a beam higher up. So it just goes to show you, doesn't it, that again, a homemade aerial, and Paul has written up that aerial online, as you can see Andrew there has said. And this is Aaron. You can see the island name's gone again from me. I put it down to age. Ailsa Craig in the background there. Looks like a hole in the sky, my mother used to say. Looks like a hole in the sky. And that, of course, is where all the granite comes from for curling stones. And I'm not sure what is in the foreground there, possibly one of the 40-meter array aerials while we were putting things up. And again, we were nice and high up, but close to the water. And we had a bit of VHF aerial up there, 6 meters and 2 meters. But again, not much activity. You can see the dipole there for the lower bands. Another picture, I think that is probably the 20 meter verticals there. And again, probably the 40 meter array. I should just say that the 40 meter verticals, two phased verticals, I just guide with one set of guys. They're just a fishing rod with wire up it. One set of guys, and they're held in place by tent pegs, basically, into the ground. The requirements for these things is so straightforward, so simple. Another picture there of some of the verticals. We've grown to love verticals, and here again, Brendan, EI6IZ, he ran the CW station on 30 meters, and he transmitted on a 30 meter vertical, but we ran out 2 beverages. First time I've ever seen them in use. The great thing about the Elecraft K3, and you'll see that later, is that if you've got the second receiver in, then you can do true diversity reception. What that means is you can have 2 aerials, one in each ear. So we ran out 2 beverages, one running north-south, one running east-west, and they were about 300 feet long, if I remember correctly. They could have been slightly shorter, but they were certainly long. And Brendan had one of those in each ear, and it transmitted on the vertical and never lost a signal. It's quite remarkable. I had a listen while he was doing the CW, and the stations were just stacking across your head from left to right. It was quite remarkable, the difference it made. But we've never had the room really to do it since. And thanks, Steve. The Delta Loop was for 17, not for 15. And this is the 80 meter vertically, which Steve and Paul put together here. And at the bottom of it, because it's short, at the bottom of it, there is, you can just see one of the radials going between the cane that Steve is holding and the mast, so you can see it's probably about 5 feet up. And at the bottom, near the connection box, was an open coil which could be stretched or squashed to get the tuning correct. And that worked quite well, actually, for the time we were there. And so on to Arranmore. You'll see a picture of this from a different angle in a minute. And we've been to Arranmore twice. And the first time, the conditions were much better. Again, correct me, Steve, but I think we did about 16,500 Qs the first time. And I can remember getting 10 o'clock one morning and Longpath, JA and Oceana just opening up. It was quite astonishing, and 20, 15 and 17 metres. And just had a field day drawing them in. And you can see that looks like a 10 metre, looking at the spacing, 10 metre array, which I don't think we did anything on 10. But you can see the aerials bending there a little bit. When we were there the first time, it wasn't an issue. It was quite calm, and as you can see, this is relatively calm. The aerial you can see over to the left-hand side is a stepper vertical, which you can just literally switch depending on the band you want. Yeah, it was the 40 metre in the background, and there's another picture of that. This is taken from where the 40 metre array was, looking down towards the sea. One of the things I remember about coming here the first time was arriving, and we went over to the cliff edge to have a look down to see if we could put a sloper down to the beach. And the tide was fully in, and we saw what we thought were dolphins bouncing around, and one of our guys, Mike, ran and got his camera and took a picture, and it turned out to be tuna They were absolutely huge, and I'll never forget that. The next image is from Tyree, and this is actually a video, as you can see, and this gives you an idea of what the wind can be like. That's a 17 metre, I think, and here again is the 40 metre area. I'm willing to be wrong, but it was a bit breezy, to say the least, and that's 30 metres further away, and that's Paul, I think, going around and checking that all the guys were in. And bear in mind, these are just held up with tent pegs, and it works really, really well. We had some real problems at Tyree because all the aerials were very close together. And again, another picture, probably around the same time, but just to give you an idea of how things can turn around and just turn out to be beautiful. You can still see the wind, but a big double rainbow. Just amazing. And that little island you can see just a little further out, there was a bull seal in his harem there all week. And as we were leaving, actually, a porpoise came across and was just jumping out in and out of the water. But we did have some real problems with sorting out the interactions between the aerials. And at Tyree, for the first and only time, there was actually a 4 element phased array for 15 meters, I think it was. And we tried to light a fluorescent tube off it because we did the calculations as to 400 watts into that 4 element vertical array, and you wouldn't have wanted to stand in front of it. It would have heated your evening meal quite happily, but there we are. So let's have a look at radio. So from the very early start, this is the DX station at Mull. So you can see the age of the computer here. We were using Windtest at the time, which we had a license for, and that's Chris's 920 and the Ranger there. We didn't actually have the ATUs connected at this point. There was no need, and this was on. This had the spider beam on it, so it was relatively good for DX. But conditions were so much better. This is me at the 40 and 80 meter station, the dipole, and we actually did really well here. I can remember getting up one morning and working VK2MM on 40 meters. We were 5.9 each way, no problem at all, and I only had 100 watts here. It worked remarkably well. The next shot is, I think at Arran, and this is Brendan's station at Arran. Brendan comes and does CW with us. He's amazing. He puts down the most cues of all of us, although Steve keeps trying to beat him. And so Brendan usually has a paddle key, a straight key, the wing key, and it will just switch speed regardless, depending on the operator. This is me again, and this is Aaron. So I'm on 20 meters here, and it looks like I'm doing possibly PSK 31 maybe at this particular time. You can see the amps off. So I'm just using relatively low power. Now this is Brendan on the left, and so I'm just using relatively low power. Now this is Brendan on the left, and Chris G4LDS on the right. Chris isn't actually asleep there; he's concentrating really hard. and Brendan's listening as well, ready to burst into action as soon as he gets somebody. This was at Arranmore the last time we went, which was 2016, I think. Again, another one from that's Brendan's station that you're looking at there, and behind that is Andrew using the 20 meter station. And this is a picture of the 20 meter station, and you're starting to see proper radios now. This is the Elecraft K3, KPA 500, and the P3 pan adapter, and the monitor on your right is showing exactly the same as the pan adapter. Unfortunately, the glare on the pan adapter doesn't show you it, but it's exactly the same, but much bigger and easier to see, and you can clearly see where the stations are and where any potential interference is coming from, which is extremely useful when you're operating. The next slide I entitled, they call it wireless, and this is at Arran, and it's the back of Brendan's station. It's definitely not wireless, is it? But there we go. Bearing in mind that we have to set up not only the radios and the aerials, but the computer network as well, because everything is networked. When we were here at Arranmore, this is at Tyree, we had 2 cottages, and we did the same at other places. We actually kept all the radios in one of the cottages and had social time in the other, but at other places we had multiple cottages and had to link them all together. And Brendan works in the industry and was able to link everything up, so we had a working computer network, so we could pass DX on different bands, which is really useful when you're running. You can say, oh, see, you haven't worked us on 15 meters, we're on such and such a frequency. And really useful, and you can actually talk between stations, which is great. Again at Tyree, this is Paul on the 15 meter station, I believe. It's M1 PAF. And this is interesting. This was at Tyree, and this is the first and only time I've ever heard this. This is static. I used to come down in the morning, get on the radio. Huey would follow me down and make a brew, because he's like that. And I came down this morning, and instead of virtually S0, I saw this. And I thought, what the hell is that? So here's a little video with some audio, so you get the idea. And this is static rain. One thing we discovered at Tyree, it never starts to rain at Tyree. It's either raining or it's not. I remember one of our guys just going out to the van, which was like 10 yards away, walked out of the door and pretty much walked straight back in again, completely soaked. You never got little bits of spit and spat there. It just rained or it didn't. But that's the first and only time I've ever heard static rain. And I only got it for a couple of mornings, and then it went away again. This is Steve at Jura. If you look at the age of the computer, this is 2008. You can see the age of the equipment, but the Elecraft K3 is there. Not sure what band that was on. But not to worry, we were knocking them out by that time. So this is 20 meter station, I think, that I'm on, and Frank in the background on 80 meters. And this room was the snooker room. As you saw the front of the house, it's a massive place. Yeah, we did work some good stuff, didn't we, Paul? But you'll see a bit more. Now, the next 2 slides are both videos, so I hope that they're able to keep up. I hope the videos so far have been relatively smooth. The next one is at Tanner and Moore, and this is Steve on the 20 meter station.
The call from Venice, 73s, bye-bye. Mike Sugar Zero, Whiskey Romeo Charlie, listening.
We only had 2 stations here. The second one
Charlie Mike Yankee,
was also supposed to be
73, thanks.
Another K3, but sadly it got broken in the setup, so we actually used Andrew's KX3, I think it's KX3, isn't it, and ran it into a linear, which gives about 200 watts. You could have fried an egg on the little KX3 portable, but it worked a treat. You can hear Andrew quite clearly in the back. One thing I'll tell you is Steve cannot hear him at all. That's a Radio Sport headset, and the isolation in that thing is unbelievable. You just can't hear anything that's going on at all. Remarkable piece of kit.
Yeah, got it correct now, Peter.
Yes, I see we did work earlier on 40 metres. I think you worked my friend Andrew.
So we just had the two stations here because the whole, or our part of the island was run by a generator. You know, it was quite impressive, really, the whole thing. The next one is Usataran, and I've included it because it was interesting in as much as we always try and run a ragtube station for UK stations, and this was on 80 metres, and I was on the coast-to-coast net, which happens at 9 o'clock each weekday morning, and I was just reporting back onto what was going on. So then we oh yeah, I remember that, Steve, with the guy at the Jura Gardens. So this is me just reporting back on the coast to coast. I'm just running 100 watts into a dipole, just reporting what we were doing. 2000, about 100 watts now into a dipole, so that's the situation here. But we've been building aerials up to now. We have 5/8 up for 17 metres. We have a 40 metre phased array with 2 verticals. We have a 20 metre phased array with 2 verticals. We have a vertical up for 30 metres, and the dipoles, and the 15 metre vertical is going up as we speak. It's too windy to put the 80 up, unfortunately, as yet. But the phased verticals are amazing, very simple to put together, and the results are absolutely fantastic. We've been into VK and Indonesia and Borneo and all over although we worked VK7 on 40 this morning, and also on 30 metres CW, got several VKs, so it's going really well. I'll tell you how many queues we've done in a moment, but we need to get about 1500 queues in today, so we'll be looking to see just exactly how many we can put together. We'd love to be able to get 1500 a day, because the idea is to work up to 10,000. We're up to 1865 at the moment, so that's where we are at the minute, and we're doing very well. Had some good runs. So there you can see that we're actually planning to do so many queues a day, and this was probably the first time we'd looked at that and how to do it. I can't remember where we first used the switchable phased arrays, but I don't think it was here, was it, Steve, or Paul? I think it was possibly Aaron Moore, but this was Brian G0RDH. This was his FT2000, and at Aaron we had no problem with it at Tyree. It was quite astonishing at Tyree. Paul had been making what we did at Tyree was we had some boards, like chopping boards with SO239 couplers through, so we could bring any aerial in and pass it to any station just by changing it outside, and by putting T-pieces on them, because we had so much interaction between the aerials with them all being so close. Paul was just making up stubs for fun, some reject, some accept stubs, and then connecting them via T-pieces to filter to act as bandpass filters for the bands or notches or whatever. And the only thing we couldn't get rid of was the FT2000, which was, and it was all over Brendan, and we all over the CW station, and it turned out to be pure phase noise in the radio. So I don't think we ever used a 2000 again, but it worked fine here. One of the things that you don't realise until you get to do it is actually DXing is damn hard work, as you can see. This is Jura. I'm not quite sure what radio that is. But yeah, I'm fairly certain this is Jura. But yeah, it is Jura because I could see the snooker thing in the background there. So it'd be the 80 metre station at Jura. That's what it is. And yeah, I should have known because there's a partly drunk bottle of Jura whiskey there. No, it was somebody else's 2000, Brian, not yours. And the other thing is that not only is it very tiring, but sometimes when you're in the middle of a digital QSO, it can be difficult to keep your concentration. So I remember this, and we were playing snooker in the background, and and we noticed that Andrew was asleep, and we mentioned it to him a little while later, probably about 10 minutes later, and he woke up and said, "Oh yeah," and he carried on, and the guy was still waiting for him at the other end. It was very, very funny. The next one is at Tanner and Moore, and you've seen Steve from the side operating the station, but you didn't appreciate the view he had, and that was his view. That's the mainland back there. So that was him looking out, working 20 metres probably, and looking out over to the mainland. Amazing place, but damn hard work to get stuff up and down and then tied up at the end of it. Didn't the election, we ended up having to literally brush everywhere up. We couldn't use a dear me. Yep, there we go. Thanks, Brendan. Just confirmed what I remember. So it's great fun doing all the DX and everything, but you also have to have some social time. And so we do that, and we do it quite well actually, and we've got better at it over a period of time. This was Mull, and we'd finished. You can see it's dark, and we were looking and seeing if we could get any signal. I think this was Andrew trying to get the football. It was probably a complete disaster, and the first meal was going on. And everything happened on that table, because we literally had this room which had the 40-80 metre station in, although that's not set up here, so this is probably the very first night, because the power supplies are all there, and the DX station was in the other room. There was a dorm upstairs which 4 of us shared, and a double bedroom which Chris and Bex had, and that was about it really. It was a funny old place. But we've always eaten well, and the next couple of slides show that. Kev, who you can see in the picture there with the black top on, this is his father Paddy, who's not licensed at all. He's getting on a bit now, is Paddy. He's lost his wife this year, sadly. He's been in hospital himself, but Mark was our chef, who you saw just before having a little nap with the Jura whiskey. Now, this was Jura, and Jura House had a massive kitchen. There were 2 Argos, 2 of them, and this is the lamb, I think, with fresh rosemary all over it and one thing. It'd been cooking all day, absolutely beautiful, and we don't eat badly. We normally come back several pounds heavier than when we went. This was the gammon, which was glazed with marmalade, and absolutely delicious. And we also had lamb chops. I'm probably making you all hungry here, but as you can see, we ate pretty well. And good balanced meals too, which is important. This is Aaron Moore, and we were totally enjoying the food here. This was the first time at Aaron Moore. This was the very first one, and Mark, you can see over the back there with the orange camper van thing, and we would pass the wine round, and then I'd get my guitar and my banjo out, Andy'd get his fiddle out, and we'd have some fun. We'd all sort of start playing music, Bluetooth it to the speakers. And just have a real good crack and totally relax after the day. This was at Tyree. This was the second house which we kept purely for eating, and this is Mark's world famous DX breakfast. It's gradually got smaller over the years, thank God, but my God, we had some good breakfasts, and there was plenty of tea and orange juice, and as much food as you could eat. And then there was lunch, and then there was evening meal. That's cut out. What happened last time, which was a great idea, Mark took some slow cookers and he cooked everything at breakfast, and then at lunchtime there was sausages and things like that in the various bacon in the various slow cookers, and you could just go and choose what you wanted and make a sandwich or whatever you wanted. It's a much better idea. And of course, there's just relaxing. This is me and Kev. Kev, as usual, has got his nose in some technical antenna book. I think this was at Tyree, but you can see the DX juice flowing perfectly well. And when we're on Jura, this looks a really strange picture, but that's Mike. Excuse me, that's Mike. And M0PRL and VP8 DMH, amongst other calls, as he went to work down at Antarctica for a couple of years. But this was the only place on Jura we could get internet. You've got to remember, this is 2008. You're quite right, Brian. The Rosemary was from home. So we came down here, and this is how we passed stuff back. The logs and everything, to get them online for people. Interestingly, when we were at Mull, the way we did that was over HF, and I can't remember the mode we used, but we used a mode back to G6CRV in Hisham, and we used a particular mode on HF, and we would pass the logs and some photographs across for the blog, because we had no internet at Mull whatsoever. In fact, we only just had a couple of mobile phones, and one of them was mine, and that was a company phone. So, they hadn't really happened in 2006. And this is at Arran, just a little bit of evening relaxation after the event. That's Brendan, Kev in the front, and Paul M1PAF. And Arran Moor, the favourite place of mine that we've been. I just absolutely love this place. And this is Shackville Ban, the main bar on the island. There are 6 bars if they're all open, and this is the main one. And we're just enjoying a drink there. Amazingly, it looks like I'm drinking the bitter there, but I soon moved on to the Guinness because it was amazing. And while we were there, a couple of musicians from the mainland turned up, and I ended up playing. So we were having the banjo player was amazing. He was really good, quite dour, but amazingly good. And you can just see the guy with the long beard, just in the red shirt. He was the guitarist, and he just said to me, "Do you play?" and handed me the guitar. And the guy straight in front of you was with them, and he was thoroughly enjoying himself. And after that, there was a guy played a tune on a whistle, which was amazing. And then an old guy got an accordion out and started playing, and his right hand was doing all the right things, and the left hand was vamping, but not necessarily in the same key. But it was an absolutely great evening. Hi, John. Nice. I'm glad you could make it. But yeah, we had some great times there. And I can't remember whether this is the first or the second time. I think it was the second time I went, which is 2016, before the real gin thing happened around here. But this was a little bar. There was a general store at the front. And the general store, it was quite sparse, really. But we said, "Is the bar open?" And she opened it just for us, and we went in, and you could see she had a whole stock of whiskies and gins, including some whiskies from Japan. Quite amazing. We still drank the Guinness because you've got it to do, haven't you? But there you go. And here we are at Jura House again, and you can see now the snooker table, and obviously I need a longer queue and rest, but they'd be working radio and we'd be having a game of snooker in the background. And this is Paddy again, doing his best Irish spud bashing with a can of DX juice. again at Jura House. Paddy and Mark got on so well, as well as forever arguing. But it was it's one of the highlights, I think, of the things we did. So I come to scenery. This is the last set of slides, but you can't underestimate the places you go to, because yes, it's about the radio and everything else, but it's a holiday at the end of the day. This is Mull, and it was just beautiful. Mull, as I say, was the first time I ever saw a golden eagle. I can remember going outside and looking up at the Milky Way and not being able to see constellations, and putting my hand up to try and point at something and a bat flying around it. It was just an amazing place, really wild. Again, Mull, just beautiful, beautiful scenery. And again, Mull at sunset. And we were on our way back from Tobermory. Kevin and I had been up to Tobermory, which is a strange little place. And there was a little passing place, and I saw these two rotting boats, and so we just stopped, and Kevin just took a picture. It's not a particularly great picture, but, you know, the cameras weren't, the digital cameras weren't the same as they are now, of course. Cheers, Andy. Sorry to miss you, mate, but you haven't missed too much, so you're all right. And this is a pheasant. This was at Jura, and they were like raptors, the pheasant. There was about 20 of them, and they used to run all down the field and then run all the way back up again, all together. I'd never seen pheasants like them. They were quite amazing. And the Highland cattle. I can remember coming back from the main town on Jura, and we'd been down to Jura Stores, and we were heading back, and the cattle had got out, and they were coming down the field with those big horns literally swinging from side to side, and we were in a hire van, and I was terrified they were going to rip the side out of it, but fortunately we kept very quiet, very still, and they passed. But one of the major things that I remember about Jura is this. That was the colour of the water at Jura because they didn't have mains water. And so the water was full of peat. And the people in Jura would quite happily drink that, but you wouldn't want to do it if you weren't used to it. So it didn't look very pleasant. The shower looked better. But that was the water. That was the way it was. And then on to Tiree. How about that for a beach? That could be anywhere in the world, couldn't it? And the house was just literally behind us. Now, this is at low tide, of course, but just astonishingly beautiful. And I mentioned about Tanara and where we were staying, and this is Tanara Moor, and we were in that top house there. So literally, we had to walk up. You can just see a ridge running from about halfway up the screen across to that first house. We had to walk all the way up the hill, across there, through the yard of that first house, and then on up to the top house with all of the gear, and then back, all the way back down again afterwards. And one of the things you've got to really understand about DXPeditioning is that you use a hell of a lot of electricity, a hell of a lot. So I think it was Aaron where we first did it. But what we used to do was take a meter reading when we arrived and a meter reading when we left, and then we would pay the extra electricity because you seriously used a lot. And unbeknown to us, they had to really keep the generator topped up with fuel because we were, even with only 2 stations, we were going through it. Tanara Moor means harbour island, and it's shaped like a croissant. It's in the Summer Isles, where they call that because they used to take the cattle across in the summer to graze and then bring them back in the winter. And this is the view from the house. And This is a salmon farm in the harbour, if you like, and there's the other houses on the island, all of which are holiday homes. And there is a path that walks all the way around there. I do recommend you don't go off the path if ever you go there. It's amazingly treacherous in places. So you've got to be truly careful. But a lovely island, an old telephone box there with an old telephone, pay telephone inside it, not in use anymore, but it's still there. And there's a post office on the island. You can buy stamps from tenner or more. They're not legally accepted, but you can get their stamps. And just absolutely beautiful. And again, tenner or more. That's the mainland in the background. I'm not sure where that is. I'm really not sure where that is, so I'm not going to guess. But I remember, Steve, your arms have been a foot longer. Now, when we were at Arranmore, we often wondered why everybody lived in the south. And we were in lighthouse cottages in the north, 3.5 miles north. You could have literally put a 30 kilowatt PA outside and nobody would have heard you. And certainly when we were there in 2016, I don't think it ever dropped below force 5. It was crazy, and we had some really serious gales. We were constantly going out and putting aerials back up. And the first thing we did in the morning was go out and put all the aerials back up in the air. And you wonder why people live in the south. Well, this wasn't at a force 10, but it was certainly breezy up the top end, very breezy. But this is taken from Shacfilban, which is in the south of the island, while it was blowing a hoolie at the north. So that gives you an idea why people live in the south. Just a wonderful, wonderful place, and I do love it. The two guys, brothers who live south and go to Shacfilban, and we never saw them arrive at the pub, and we never saw them leave. And they once said it's great living here. It's only €20 a week, plus 200 for the beer and the fags. Great people. It was a good crack. I enjoyed it thoroughly. And it never ceases to surprise you when you come to leave. And this again was Arranmore as we were leaving the lighthouse. And we got that. Just amazing. Absolutely astonishing. I've never seen a rainbow so close. Quite fabulous. And just to finish with one of Mark's pictures, which is that, which I think is a great picture, and brings this little talk to a close. I hope you enjoyed that. I could have added lots more in there, like Baz coming up and one thing and another. But I wanted to keep it as concise and as close to an hour as I could. Feel free to ask any questions. If I don't answer them now, I will answer them on the timeline, and I will make this video available after the event, obviously, for those who couldn't watch it. You had good memories. Hi, Huey. I'm glad you could make it, and some good memories there for you as well, mate. Take care, everybody. I will stay online for about 5 minutes in case anybody just wants to ask any questions or reminisce at all, and then we'll leave it at that. Have a very good evening.